Carney Hitchbeth. If you don't know me, I'm the Director of Emergency Services for Beaufort County. I appreciate you coming to the agencies in which you represent. Please make sure your name is on the clipboard as it goes around. I'm going to give you a quick situational report of where we are, plans that are in place, and then I'll try to answer a few of your questions or get anything settled there that we can. If we get too long, I'm just going to ask you to email me. I've got some cards up here, and we'll try to get you that information as quick as we can. As you are aware, Hurricane Florence has got a direct target on us in North Carolina. It is close enough now from the intel in which the National Weather Service has given us. We know it's going to hit North Carolina specific. Exact location of landfall, we do not know, but we know it really doesn't matter at this point, that we're going to be affected no matter what. The wind field of this storm, as you see any of the forecasts that are on TV that are being modeled, it pretty much covers North Carolina. This is wind speeds with a Category 4 hurricane, and looking at speeds of a Category 4 in our emergency operations plan, that does call for an evacuation of Beaufort County. Hence why we issued yesterday a voluntary evacuation for Beaufort County. It is expected, no matter again the track, right now it is expected that we could have hurricane class 4 winds hitting when it comes to North Carolina. The storm is expected, the winds of 130 to 140 miles an hour are expected to slow when they hit landfall. We know sustained winds right now that we're looking at of 65 plus, okay? So that's sustained winds as it comes on the land. The storm has slowed. So we were looking at really a landfall coming late Wednesday night into early Thursday morning. We're still going to have effects Wednesday night and Thursday morning. I've been trying to describe to people, you will go to bed and see one thing and you'll wake up the next day with a different story. So everything we're looking at a timetable is still our Wednesday night into Thursday. The Thursday morning we know that we'll have landfall that is coming, and then there is a stall that is expected. Okay, if you look now, we're pretty much talking about winds and rain from late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning, going through Saturday night into Sunday. The storm surge specific to Beaufort County and our waterways is 6 to 9 feet. That was updated again this morning. From our briefing we gave yesterday, if you heard that it seemed like the predictions were high, we gave exactly what we were given. It gave us rain amounts of 15 to 20 inches, storm surges of 7 to 9 feet. Last night they diminished that a little bit, and then it came back up again today. So that's exactly where we are. We are looking at that rain totals right now of being around the 15-inch mark is what we need to expect. This is a dangerous storm. This is a large storm. We do believe this is unprecedented for us here. So it should be taken seriously. We are still under a voluntary evacuation. We will continue under a voluntary evacuation for Beaufort County. We have issued this morning a mandatory evacuation for low-lying areas adjacent to waterways or that are known prone to flood. Now with that, what does that mean? We have a lot of questions. What does mandatory mean? It simply means for us, under mandatory, when things get rough enough that it's a danger for our responders, we're not going to send responders in those areas that we have called for mandatory evacuation. No one's going to force anyone out of their home. It's up to every individual to make a decision on their own. That's the difference between voluntary and mandatory evacuations. So for those low-lying areas that are prone to flood, we have issued this morning a mandatory evacuation, asking people to be out of those areas by sunset on Wednesday night. Moving in the daytime is a whole lot better than moving at night, especially when we add the storm conditions to it. Now, another common question that comes up is, what about shelters? Where are we going to? If we're saying we need to go, where do we go? Well, typically in a storm, we can go a couple of counties over. We have plans for that. That's not the case with this storm, as it's covering most of North Carolina as we look at it. To get out of the storm's path, we were saying you had to go to Winston-Salem, but that's actually even further than that. The only part of North Carolina not covered by this storm is Murphy. And you know what your geography is, that's all the way at the end. So we've been asked, should I go north, should I go south? If you go immediately north or immediately south, you're still in the danger zone. So that's not a good option. We understand some people will shelter in place, but I promise you, if you're in an area that has been flooding, you are very subject to flooding again, and probably greater than that. So we just ask you to be careful about that. We have been asking the state, where is our shelter beyond this county? Where would we send people of Beaufort County to? That's still being worked on. It's been asked as of yesterday. So I just want you to know that that is something that we're on top of, we're trying to get. But it's not just our county, it's every county in the east is having these same requests. So we're waiting for that exact location. As far as shelters that are open, if you use the app, Ready NC, it will show any shelter that is open in the state of North Carolina, and that means it's open to anybody to come. So whether that's in Beaufort County or another county and so on. We have been slow to announce a shelter for Beaufort County. This morning we did announce that we will open a shelter at 12 o'clock tomorrow. It will be Washington High School. We do have a transportation schedule to help people get there. We're going to put a bus at the Belhaven area. We've made arrangements for the food line parking lot at Belhaven to leave Wednesday. It'll be 2 pickup times. The bus will leave at 2 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon, and then we'll have a second transportation. The bus will leave at 5 p.m. So that's on the north side of the river. Yes, sir.
You said Ready NC. Is that readync.com or
.org?
.org.
readync.org. Thank you for asking that for clarification. Again, that's Wednesday night from the Belhaven area, Northside area. The bus leaves at 2 o'clock and will leave at 5 o'clock. On the south side, we're going to have 3 pickup locations. The reason for that, we're not opening a shelter on the south side. The south side of our county is anticipated to have the blunt of this storm. It's going to have the worst conditions. We don't want to open up a shelter in the worst conditions. So we're going to provide transportation. We will have a bus at Aurora Fire Department that will be departing at 2 p.m. on Wednesday. It will be making a stop at Blunt's Creek Fire Department on Highway 33, departing from there at 2:30, and then make a final stop in Chocowinity at the food line, departing there at 3 o'clock. The second run of that bus will be Wednesday night starting at 5 with the same time frame. So 5 o'clock, Aurora 5:30 at Blunt's Creek, and 6 o'clock at Chocowinity. This is a press release I'm reading to you right now, so if you can't get everything I'm saying, if you just go to our social media site, we put this out. We've also sent it to the news media of Transportation Times. So Washington High School is the shelter that we are identifying, and we will be opening. It will be opening at noon tomorrow. Okay? Questions have come up about other shelters. Right now, Washington High School is our shelter. As we start to reach capacity, we'll be looking, we've got options of what we will do next, Commissioner.
Just clarify something for me. I had a gentleman call me about an hour ago. He said he saw that we were under a mandatory evacuation. And he was under the opinion that if he left and went to Pitt County, he would be stopped and not allowed to come back to his home. And I told him, I said, I don't think that's the case. So can you just clarify that?
Yes, so we did have communication somehow got altered between what we gave and what the state first put out about our county. Where we put out a voluntary evacuation, we had a phone call with the state EOC. There was conversations about the governor's request for Eastern North Carolina, period. We had conversations that we would be issuing a mandatory evacuation for those low-lying areas, and they put out that Beaufort County was under a mandatory evacuation period. You can imagine the confusion that caused in our county and to our office for that. We've tried to rectify that, but it's hard to pull information back once it goes out. So we are not, again, under a county mandatory evacuation except for those low-lying areas. Now, as far as coming back into our county, I don't want to speak for the Sheriff's Department. They will be providing the patrol of the county, and they will be doing that to the best of their ability. I would think they would only stop people from coming back into an area if we had a lot of devastation and there was a need from emergency services to keep people from coming back. So as far as just being locked out of the county, I don't think that would be proper information. Yes, sir.
Is the shelter pet friendly?
The shelter itself is not pet friendly, but with that we have opened up a pet shelter at our animal control or animal shelter, the Betsy want to make sure I say it right, Betsy Bailey Nelson Animal Control or Animal Shelter. So the way that works is if an individual is checking into the shelter, they will be given a tag that says that I'm going to be a resident of the shelter, and their animal will be able to be taken at our animal shelter for the time they're in there. We cannot set up the animals at the same shelter. It's just in our process, we can't do that. We can't make just an open call and say, everybody bring your animals, because we don't have that kind of capacity. So individuals that are staying in our shelter, we are trying to help them with their pets. Good question. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I remember when Floyd came through, 17 at the bridge was between the bridge and Chocowinity was flooded. What kind of plans do you have in place if that happens about getting people to the shelter on the north side?
Okay. Our evacuation times, as we look at this, is to get ahead of the storm.
Ahead of the storm,
Okay.
okay.
And that's where, once the storm's in, at 50-mile-an-hour winds, that's where we put a cutoff of our automatic dispatch or response. Now, what happens with that in emergency services, including law enforcement, a call will still come in. We will still give that call, or 911 will still give that call to a department, but it'll be up to that department's discretion whether they feel it's safe to be able to respond. But we're letting people know from the Emergency Operations Center, we're stopping response at that 50-mile-an-hour wind. Now, you can have gusts that go over 50 miles an hour. We have a county large enough that Aurora could be under 50-mile-an-hour winds, and Clark's Neck area could only have 25 or 30-mile-an-hour winds. So that's why we leave it up to them to decide. As far as Highway 17, there is potential to be cut off. We could have flooding across the bridge. That flooding will most likely come 4 or 5 days later. 20, 25 inches of rain across our state, we're going to receive that. It's coming later. We've got 2 events. But we will have backed up water on the storm approach as well. The second thing is a high-rise bridge. So you think about that's a second means of transportation, not subject to flooding, but winds certainly affect vehicles going across that bridge. And we don't want to be responsible for putting an ambulance with a big windshield going across that bridge at a high rate of speed. Yes, sir.
On 911, what's your backup if the local 911 center goes down?
Okay, we have put in a request for a mobile dispatching center for that very thing. We put that request in this morning. We have a rollover that will happen. This is going to sound out of the way, but it's our safety net. There is a rollover that would happen where a switch could be flipped and 911 calls will go to Catawba County. That's getting way out west. But it's what we have to do. Remember, every county east of us is affected in the same way. And so the normal rollovers that would happen, it would roll to the neighboring county. We know Director Williams from 911 has been in contact with CenturyLink, and they've talked those things through. So there's going to be an instant switch to go. Calls will be routed to Catawba County through our Viper system or other communication systems, then come back and we dispatch out. But we have put in a request with an anticipation that our 911 center could get flooded.
Do you know if the jail is going to be evacuated?
The jail has a process of being evacuated, and is to be evacuated. It's my understanding, I will speak for the sheriff, but off of what he issued, that would take place before Wednesday. Yes.
The medically unstable, we've been told Goldsboro is the closest.
That's
We have a 99-year-old we're trying to get now out. Would you guys work with us on getting them transported to Goldsboro? If not, we've already talked to the state. The state said start local and then expedite it up to the state. That was the case.
If you'll talk to me after the
Okay.
meeting, let's find out exactly what the situation is,
Okay.
and we'll see if we can put you in the right contacts to get that done, okay?
Thank
What,
you.
what are we doing for people with medical needs?
All right, there has been a special needs shelter open. Our closest one is actually Cherry Hospital in Goldsboro. We have that address, and we've been talking to our facilities that have individuals that, hey, you need to be acting your plan. If you decide you need to evacuate what's going on, each facility is to have a plan for those transportation things. If we just started using our 911 services for that, then we would leave, there's no way we can do it. We would leave our county dry for it. We're not set up to do that. But individuals with special needs, how that is supposed to work is if you take care of a family member at home, this location is available. Shelter closest one again would be in Goldsboro, but you provide the care that goes with the person when they go to that shelter. So just as you would be taking care of them at home, you take care of them there. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What will be provided at the shelter for our services?
Pretty much bedding, cot, and food. We will start with the first meals on Wednesday night. So even though it opens at 12, the first meal, Salvation Army will be providing that, and that will start Wednesday night. We are asking people, if you're going to the shelter, remember in your evacuation, be prepared for 7 days. And that doesn't mean carry 14 suitcases with you, but understand, under this storm, you could be where you're going for more than just a couple of days. And so we want you to be prepared for that. That means medicine, any kind of necessities that you must have with you. And please do not forget your animals. Do not leave your animals at home. Get them to a safe place. Yes.
For the first night at least, if you have a special menu that you need, bring it with you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
The second pickup at Chuckaway on Wednesday, what time do you start?
All right. So the second pickup, it will start at Aurora at 5, at Blunt's Creek at 5:30, and Chocowinity Food around 6. And that may, by the time, it could get a little bit down. That's what we're looking at right now.
All right, another question. If I heard right, you said on the south side, 55 miles sustained winds?
Sustained winds of 55 miles per hour across our county.
Okay.
I expect the south side to be more than that.
Okay. And what about gusts?
The gust could be up to that hurricane force of 130, especially upon initial impact coming in. And again, we can't guarantee that that's the case, but that is the forecast that we can.
So you're saying that right here, where we're at, we'll probably get 65-mile-an-hour winds.
Security.
Sustained.
That's what we've been told is that's coming.
Okay.
Yes. Take the amount of rain we're expecting with the high wind, and we know trees and things are going to topple. I mean, it's just an expectation of
Right.
Yes, sir.
You have any suggested websites for people to check to get updates?
That website, readync.org, is weather conditions, updates on shelters, evacuation routes. It is an app that, or a site that has been developed by North Carolina Emergency Management that is that one-stop shop for a lot of information. So I would recommend everybody get that. It's an app you can put on your phone, readync.org. Okay. I had another question right here.
Yes, so in Beaufort County, we have roughly 92, 93 in-center dialysis, hemodialysis patients, and about 40 that do dialysis at home. We have some plans in place, but once the storm hits, is there any type of transportation that we've thought about as a county of helping get these dialysis patients to in-center? Is this something we need to talk about later, afterwards?
There's not a plan in place from our emergency operations of doing that. Typically, with every medical type procedure or medical facility, there's a plan around that facility itself. I'm unfamiliar with what that may be for the dialysis center. You know, typically what
we
happens
depend
is-
on the public transportation system, so BATS,
Right.
and BATS basically shuts down at a good gust of wind. Our patients have to dialyze 3 times a week. If they do not get the transportation that they need, you will begin to get 911 calls, and they will begin to be transported to the hospital. And the hospital in Beaufort County has no dialysis ability. So it's something that I think we need to discuss. It was an issue during Matthew in that we didn't have the transportation for those patients that was needed, that we normally depend upon, that the patients depend upon. Actually, CMS tells us that we are not permitted to transport those patients ourselves. So herein lies the problem. We've got a federal agency telling us we cannot transport them. So we come to emergency management and to the county asking for help.
And that's where I would say up front, the best situation is for that individuals to be voluntarily evacuated now. We know we're getting ready to be in trouble. We're getting ready to be under difficulty. So the best course of action, if we can, is to move that now. As far as transportation, we will work to see what we can do with our patients. You want to add something?
I did. With Matthew, Hurricane Matthew, we worked all 5 days of the emergency as we were called by you guys here. And we are totally willing and able up to 45-mile-an-hour winds, and that's the DOT cutoff. So we were providing services and will and have planned to. I have 8 drivers on standby right now and 5 vehicles for when you call us, if you call us. But we have to go through you in this situation. We can't do for the general public in this situation. So just, we are willing, we are able, and we are ready.
And again, that would be during the non-storm conditions.
Exactly, 45 miles per hour.
So we can go before and there.
Yes.
We'll coordinate that.
Well, and what I'm saying is, we're gonna shut the clinic down Thursday, probably Friday. So our patients are gonna need dialyzing on Saturday and Sunday.
that.
And Sunday being a day that BATS historically is not operated. So that needs to be evaluated.
Yeah, just during the storms, we do operate whenever we need it.
But understand this, as we look at the projection of what we've been told, we will be under storm conditions Thursday through Saturday night.
Right.
Into possibly Sunday morning. And when those winds are going to go away, I mean, that time, we're not going to be able to adjust. That's going to be what we get. But I will gladly try to coordinate. If you would make sure I get a contact from Pamlico, and we'll talk about that specifically afterwards.
Also, one of the biggest ingredients to dialysis is water. And we need to be kept informed as to any disruptions in that. We have contracts with providers to truck in water by tanker, but we need a little bit of lead time. So if you could put us on that list if something happens to the water system, where water is going to be shut off or scarce or water pressure drops or anything else, to let us know as soon as possible.
We won't withhold that data from anybody. If we see that there's an issue coming with the water system, we'll put that out to the community. We'll try to make sure you know about that too. But I would love to talk to you after this meeting specifically about that. All right. Any other questions? All right. As far as our county emergency operations center, it's been at a partial activation since Sunday night. We've continued that. We're looking at a full activation right now. We're going to start tomorrow morning at 8. We pushed that back to Thursday morning at 8. But we're still toiling that. It may, depending on what intel we get later this afternoon, we may change that to sometime Wednesday night. But we will make sure it is fully up and operational before we go in. I am asking the agency representatives that normally provide a person at our EOC, you know, we're hoping that you can still do that for us. It's one thing to have a phone call, but it's really something else when we can have a representative of your agency in our EOC to be able to give firsthand information to when we need help from.